The algorithm said we're compatible. Hey there, please accept my request. I'm your government-assigned girlfriend. When I discovered my match was Professor Grant Westwood, the same guy who rejected me in an interview just days ago, I immediately sent him a message. 1. Miss Margot Sterling, please arrive at the Federal Bureau of Population Harmony today at 5:21 p.m. to meet your assigned match. Please download the LoveSync app in advance. Wishing you a happy union. A new dating trend had emerged in recent years. The government used big data to match eligible singles. Pairs with high compatibility indexes were required to enter a 3-month trial relationship period. After 3 months together, if both parties felt compatible, they could get married. If not, they could choose to unbind. It was essentially government-sponsored matchmaking with teeth. I'd never fully grasped how desperate the Bureau was about marriage and birth rates until I arrived at their offices. I stared in disbelief at the lobby decorated like a wedding venue. The staff had the manic enthusiasm of cruise directors. Hello, Miss Sterling. I'm your relationship optimization specialist for this trial period. If you have any issues during your time with your match, you can come to me for help, including matters related to your intimate life. I can provide professional guidance. I choked on my coffee. That's really not necessary to be that thorough. As I awkwardly wiped my chin, Grant Westwood walked over with his suited attendant beside him. Suddenly, the scene came together. Wedding venue, suited coordinator, Grant Westwood. This was absolutely ridiculous. I never imagined my match would be him. Grant Westwood was a prodigy. In his early 20s, he'd become a tenured professor in the mineralogy department at Federal University. Before turning 30, his research had made it into textbooks for future scholars to study. But none of that was the most important part. What mattered was that Grant, as this year's lead examiner for the Research Institute, had engaged me in an intense academic debate during my first-round interview. Grant had coldly told me I wasn't suited for scientific research. I'd gotten so fired up arguing with him that we'd gone from discussing sandstone composition to planetary origins. If several security guards hadn't intervened, we would have had a physical academic exchange. After failing the interview, I'd turned around and accepted a security guard position at the same research institute, becoming colleagues with those same guards who'd restrained me. Grant clearly recognized me too. He stared at me as if trying to recall my name. I could only silently curse him in my head while maintaining a polite exterior toward this big shot. I'm Margot Sterling, the one you interviewed before. Second in my class at Federal University's Mineralogy Department. You're Margot Sterling, the new security guard at the Institute. Grant and I sat facing each other in the reception room. The receptionist thoughtfully closed the door on her way out. Before I could speak, Grant apologized. I'm very sorry, Miss Sterling. I don't know why the matching system paired me with anyone, but my focus right now is entirely on research. I'm in no rush to get married, so I hope after the 3-month trial period ends, we can proceed with unbinding. I hope you'll understand. Grant looked refined at that moment, his gold-rimmed glasses adding a scholarly air. So what if he's handsome? He still got matched with me. I smiled sweetly at Grant. Let me make your smooth-sailing life experience what hardship feels like for once. I put on a shy expression and said in a breathy voice, Actually, I've liked you for a long time. From the moment I saw your photo in my textbook 4 years ago, it was love at first sight. The only reason I stayed on as a security guard after failing the interview was so I could see you more often. Based on my assessment, a science guy at Grant's level couldn't distinguish genuine emotion from calculated performance. Grant's face instantly paled. He said carefully, Miss Sterling, I don't think that's reasonable. I continued my act. Mr. Westwood, you can deny my academic abilities, but you can't deny my feelings for you. I secretly pinched my thigh and managed to squeeze out 2 tears. Grant looked both flustered and confused. But according to biological principles, romantic attraction is the result of neurotransmitters working together in the body. It's generally believed to be the effect of phenethylamine, which stimulates the central nervous system. I clutched my chest and interrupted him with a wounded tone. Mr. Westwood, I know it's hard for you to accept me, but love doesn't follow logic. You're not a neurochemist, so why don't you feel my heartbeat and see if it's racing because of you? With that, I sat down next to Grant and grabbed his hand, trying to place it on my chest. Grant yanked his hand away as if burned, turning to look out the window. I pretended to look disappointed, then turned my head to reveal a triumphant smile. 2. That evening when I got home, my mom was leaning against my bedroom door, asking who that handsome guy who dropped me off was. "My boyfriend," I said casually. My mom rolled her eyes dramatically. She had no problem mocking her own daughter. "Oh, please. You've been single for over 20 years, and one trip outside gets you a perfectly good catch? Did you win the lottery?" I pulled out my phone, opened the message from the bureau, and read it to her word by word. Then I explained just how accomplished Grant Westwood was. "Watch this. I don't do things halfway. When I make a move, it's spectacular. Even the government thinks I'm outstanding enough to assign me a boyfriend." My mom looked at the message in amazement, examining me from all angles while muttering, "How does this algorithm thing even work? How did you get matched with him?" Then she started worrying aloud. Sure, only people the algorithm deemed highly compatible got matched, but there was practically an ocean-sized gap between us. Could this really lead to happiness? I lost my temper at that. "We studied the same major, and we both work at the research institute," I protested. My mom sighed deeply. The professor and the security guard will never have a good ending. The next morning, Grant texted me asking to meet that afternoon. I sat in the security booth feeling quite pleased with myself. Even security guard Davis, who usually ignored me, kept glancing my way. I cheerfully greeted him and tried to make conversation. "Mr. Davis, are you familiar with Professor Grant Westwood from our institute?" I gestured about this tall, pretty handsome, wears glasses. As I was describing him, I caught sight of Grant heading our way in my peripheral vision. I quickly adjusted my expression, gazing at him with eyes full of suppressed longing. My cheeks twitched from the effort. Grant's posture was noticeably stiff as he entered the institute today. As he passed the security booth, he pretended to casually glance my way. After Grant walked away, I relaxed and rubbed my cramping facial muscles. When I turned around, I saw Mr. Davis looking utterly shocked, as if he'd discovered some earth-shattering secret. He said with heartfelt disappointment, "No wonder. I wondered why someone with your qualifications would work security. So that's why." I was about to explain when I heard him continue in a knowing tone. "I understand you young people want to be in love, but no matter how much you like him, you can't waste yourself like this." His expression now viewed me as a complete lovesick fool. I wanted to explain that I took the security job to get close to all those brilliant minds at the institute. Maybe one day some expert would be in a good mood and give me some pointers. It had absolutely nothing to do with being lovesick. But I couldn't tell Mr. Davis any of this. I still had to keep fooling Grant. If word got out, it would ruin everything. When Grant finished work and came to pick me up, I saw Mr. Davis's pained expression again. Grant brought me to a residential building. I was confused and used my eyes to signal him to explain. He looked a bit guilty. Given our current relationship, it wouldn't be appropriate if people saw us together and got the wrong idea. It might affect your reputation, so let's just talk at my place. But don't worry, I won't do anything inappropriate. He handed me a document, something like a contract. The contract basically stipulated that Grant and I would go to the bureau to unbind after the 3-month trial period. As compensation, Grant was willing to pay me damages or provide other compensation that complied with law and ethical standards. I was secretly delighted, though I had to keep up the act. I took the contract and began working up some emotion, but my eyes were too dry today to squeeze out tears. Grant sat across from me watching nervously, afraid I'd burst into tears again like last time. I quickly adjusted my strategy and decided to go with a heartbroken approach. "Is my love really that cheap to you? You can choose not to accept me, but must you insult my feelings with money? Do you know how much I treasure these feelings? Every day, I only hoped to catch a glimpse of you from afar. I thought my devotion had finally moved the algorithm, that we were matched because of fate. I never imagined you'd find my feelings so worthless." I tried to make myself look like a fragile flower wounded by love. Grant's expression grew worse. I pretended to steal a resentful glance at him. Oops, I'm overdoing it. Time to give him an out. I signed my name on the contract and said with forced strength, "I won't let my feelings become your burden. If you really feel you need to do something to make it up to me, we could engage in some academic exchanges to elevate these feelings to a higher plane." He agreed to provide me with academic guidance. If I had questions, I could message him, and he'd respond when he had time. On the drive home, Grant's tone was gentle, as if afraid I'd suddenly change my mind. The car's interior lighting was dim. Grant occasionally turned his head to listen as I spoke, A warm, intimate atmosphere filled the car. I waved my hand through the air, trying to break the mood. I urgently replayed in my mind all the manipulations I'd pulled on Grant, trying to figure out which step had unlocked this scenario. For two people secretly planning to unbind after the trial period, this was awkward. 3. What is this document you sent me? It's my answer to the question you asked me the other day. I wrote 10 whole pages. Waste paper stacked high is still waste paper. Think carefully about how to actually answer this question. Remember to use your brain. I irritably tossed my phone onto the bed and cursed. Grant was a man of his word. Since that day when he'd promised to guide my studies, he'd been regularly assigning me problems, then tearing my answers to shreds. Sometimes I wondered if I really wasn't suited for mineralogy. I walked to my bookshelf and pulled out 2 textbooks, wanting to continue researching the problem Grant had posed. Seeing the somewhat worn green velvet box behind the books, I couldn't help but smile. I opened the box and held a Lake Vesper fluoride up to my eye. The whole world seemed to transform into a blue underwater realm. My mom had given it to me when I was 10. She said it would bring me good fortune. Grant sent me lots of reference materials for my answer. Looking at what he'd just sent, I felt a strange gratitude. Don't know how to express my thanks, so I'll just wish Professor Westwood an early Happy New Year. It's only March. If studying has fried your brain, go out for a walk. I was half asleep when my phone rang early one morning. The caller had a deep voice. Margot Sterling, there's an opportunity to go on a field study to Vesper. Interested? I instantly became alert, my voice jumping an octave. Yes. All right. Pack up and get to the spaceport by 8. Don't be late. I used the fastest speed of my life to get ready, grabbed my backpack, and sprinted out the door. Even after boarding the shuttle, I still felt dazed. That had been Grant calling me. The senior researcher sitting next to me elbowed me, telling me to snap out of it. He said I'd been staring at Professor Westwood and grinning like an idiot. I flashed him a toothy grin. Why did you guys bring me on this field study? I'm not even part of the institute. The senior told me to close my mouth. I was smiling so wide my gums were showing. He explained that this morning, one of the researchers' wives had fainted. At the hospital, they discovered she was pregnant. The researcher had shown up looking completely dazed, grinning stupidly. Yeah, pretty much like you right now. Then Professor Westwood, looking irritated, had told him to go home and take care of his wife. The researcher's job was mainly just recording data anyway, nothing too specialized, so they'd pulled me in. I silently prayed, thanking that guy and wishing his wife triplets. Vesper was a moon covered in lakes. Beyond the spaceport, lakes of all sizes stretched as far as the eye could see, a vast expanse of blue. But the weather could be severe, with unpredictable windstorms that were extremely dangerous without protective measures. Grant briefed the team, warning everyone not to act independently. This season was particularly dangerous. During severe weather, we needed to take protective measures and not wander off. Then he called me to the front. Margot Sterling, this is your first time with the team. Stay by my side the entire time. When we're out in the field, don't get more than 30 feet away from me. Whatever you do, don't fall behind. I responded loudly. Professor Westwood, I promise I won't leave you. Grant's face turned pale, and I heard a few suppressed chuckles from the team. I was confused. I glanced at Grant. I hadn't even tried to mess with him that time. Field research was actually quite boring. Everyone gathered around one spot, digging dirt and chipping rocks. My role wasn't significant. I helped carry equipment and took notes. Occasionally, we'd see tourists with children. The kids were usually fascinated by our work, and some would imitate us by digging holes and collecting pebbles. When I was in elementary school, my mom used to bring home beautiful stones from her work trips. She had a gorgeous box full of them. After school, I'd often pester her to show me the stones. When she explained those stones to me, her eyes had light in them. Yellow calcite, square pyrite crystals, lake blue Vesper fluorite. It was because of those strange stones and the light in my mother's eyes that I'd been drawn to mineralogy. Grant, crouching in a pit, ordered me around. Margot Sterling, stop spacing out. Go get a Type C detector. I looked at the mineral cavity where he was crouching. Dr. Chen is using the Type C. For detecting sandstone, Type B works too. I'll get that one. That works. After handing him the detector, Grant asked, How did you know I needed to detect sandstone? I felt a bit cocky. Oh, I've got more surprises you don't know about. Most rocks near Vespers lake shores are sandstone. I pointed at the black rock that had been excavated, and only around sandstone do you find this kind of black companion rock. Grant's interest was piqued, as if he wanted to test me. Do you know why this companion rock is black? I know. A childish voice answered it was a little kid who'd been imitating our digging. It's because there's something black underground that dyed the rocks black. Though the child's answer wasn't quite accurate, his earnest delivery was adorable. Can I ask the big brother a question? I want to know why that machine in your hand can detect those rocks. Grant clearly hadn't expected the child to ask such a question. He started explaining about radiation, frequencies, properties, and other technical terms. The child never understood, blinking his big eyes in confusion. After enjoying Grant's awkwardness, I kindly came to his rescue. I translated those obscure technical terms into child-friendly language. The result was the child's worshipful, star-filled eyes. The child whispered to me, though he thought he was being quiet, that he thought I was way better than that big brother, and when he grew up, he wanted to be someone amazing like me. I smiled and patted the child's head, feeling a bit ashamed inside. Better not tell this kid I'm currently working as a security guard. 4. The research had been progressing smoothly these past few days. Everyone was relaxed when we returned to our lodgings. We gathered together playing cards. After losing several rounds in a row, I walked to the window for some air. Outside, the sky was dark and heavy. Small ripples appeared on the black lake surface, with bubble-like formations rising near the shore. My heart sank. Oh no, it's raining. If rainwater gets into today's drill holes, it'll affect the samples. I anxiously told everyone. Dr. Chen told me not to worry. Professor Westwood had already gone to waterproof the cavities, sensing the weather change. But was it really just rain? Would Vespers rain produce those strange little bubbles? In a flash, I remembered a research article I'd read about Vespers' major windstorms. The author had theorized that before Vespers' severe typhoons, foam-like bubbles sometimes appeared by the lakes. The article noted this was just speculation, not yet supported by sufficient data. White bubbles by the lake, wasn't that exactly what we were seeing now? Vespers' windstorms were seriously powerful. Oh no, the windproof equipment we'd prepared before coming was still sitting safely in our rooms. Grant definitely hadn't brought any. Telling him to come back wouldn't work either. What if he encountered the windstorm on his way back? I announced I was taking Professor Westwood windproof equipment. Dr. Chen and the others looked surprised. Isn't it just rain? The weather report didn't mention any wind warnings. I put on my windproof suit and grabbed the equipment, waving them off. Better safe than sorry. If there's no windstorm, that's best. The cavity wasn't far anyway. I'd be back quickly. Walking toward the cavity, wind was already picking up, though it wasn't strong yet. I quickened my pace and managed to text Grant, telling him to stay put and wait for me at the cavity. The wind grew stronger. Lake water whipped up by the wind crashed back down with sharp slapping sounds. In the pitch-black night, it was especially eerie. By the time I hurried to the cavity, my phone was showing a severe wind warning. Grant was huddled in the cavity, using the waterproofing materials as a shield. His hair was soaked by rain carried on the wind. He looked rather pitiful. I quickly handed him the windproof suit, then leaned against the cavity to set up the windproof tent. Seeing me arrive, his expression showed clear shock. He was saying something to me intensely, but at this wind level, I couldn't hear him at all. Only the howling wind filled my ears. I shoved the windproof suit into his arms, signaling him to put it on. Grant knew this wasn't the time for talking. After quickly donning the suit, he came to help me set up the tent. Once we were both tucked inside the windproof tent, Grant immediately started scolding me. Why did you run out here in this wind? What did I tell you on the first day? What are you supposed to do when there's danger? Did you not listen to a word I said? I'd braved the fierce wind to get here, gasping for breath, risking danger to bring Grant windproof equipment, and now he was yelling at me. My temper flared. Grant Westwood, why are you being such a jerk? Who do you think I did this for? Besides, didn't you tell me not to get more than 30 feet from you? You ran out here, so of course I had to follow. Grant was clearly worked up too. Fine. I'm a jerk. But when have you ever listened to me? I told you that you weren't suited for the institute, you didn't listen. I sent you all those messages telling you to stay put, you didn't listen. All you do is spout nonsense. My emotions spiraled out of control. My calf, hit by a wind-blown rock on the way here, burned with pain. Fine, just pretend I never came today. I'm listening to you now. I'm going back inside to stay put. I unzipped the tent and started to leave. The moment I opened it, the wind hurled a large rock straight at me. Get down. The next second, Grant threw himself over me, blocking the rock with his back. Grant let out a muffled groan, forcing himself to use his back to seal the gap I'd created. Pinned beneath him, I looked at Grant's soaking wet hair under his protective suit, my voice trembling. Grant, are you okay? Just zip up the tent first. I scrambled up and struggled to pull the zipper closed. Once it was sealed, Grant collapsed inside the tent, drained. He lay beside me, barely managing to say, "Can't you ever make things easy for me?" My eyes stung. I wanted to ask how badly the rock had hurt him, but I felt too embarrassed to speak up. After all, we'd just had a fight, and it was my fault he'd been hit. Just as the atmosphere grew cold and awkward, both our phones made a sound simultaneously. Ding. Hello, this is the Federal Bureau of Population Harmony LoveSync app. System detection shows that over the past 15 days, your time together, heart rates, and hormone levels have all fallen below set values. Overall intimacy is too low. LoveSync will now activate relationship enhancement mode. Detailed information can be found on the Bureau website's trial period guidelines. Detecting that you are currently on Vesper and considering weather conditions, the system's recommendation is heartfelt intimate conversation for 10 minutes. The detection system will remain active until both parties' intimacy reaches set values. Please complete the recommendation seriously. Grant and I stared at each other, shock practically materializing in our eyes. Grant furrowed his brow and grabbed his phone to research the so-called trial period guidelines. I messaged the receptionist we'd met at the bureau, asking how to disable the relationship enhancement mode. She replied very professionally and quickly. After reading her response, I curled up in despair. If I turn into a tiny ball, sadness can't find me. A crisp, mechanical voice rang out like a death knell. System detects that within 5 minutes, neither party has executed the recommendation. This is your first warning. A second warning will result in direct action according to regulations. Please be advised. For the first time, I heard Grant's voice tremble, as if his soul had sustained a massive shock. After reading the regulations, I think we should follow the system's suggestion. I asked him, what if we don't? They'll freeze our consumer privileges, public transportation access, and so on. Grant gave me a bitter smile. Basically, we'd have nowhere to exist in the entire country. I tentatively said, then let's start now. You time it. Grant pulled up the timer on his phone and nodded at me. 5. I racked my brain trying to figure out how to have a heartfelt conversation. Grant spoke first. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lost my temper at you just now. I was just too anxious. I brought you out here. I have a responsibility to keep you safe. When I saw you limping when you arrived, all I could think about was what could have happened. Does your leg still hurt? I was a bit taken aback. I hadn't expected Grant to speak so gently, or to have noticed my injured leg. I should apologize. I lost my temper too. I shouldn't have opened the zipper without thinking. Silence fell again. I spoke stiffly. You're pretty smart. You knew to use the cavity's waterproofing equipment to protect yourself. I thought you'd sacrifice yourself to protect the cavity. Grant looked at me somewhat helplessly. Margot Sterling, I'm a researcher, not an idiot. If the cavity gets damaged, we can drill another one in a few days. If I'm gone, that's a loss for the Institute. Oh, I guess I had this image of you, someone devoted to academia, oblivious to everything else, the dedicated research genius type. Grant said calmly, well, shatter that image then. I thought for a moment and said, but just now when you apologized to me first, I realized you're not just the cold Professor Westwood anymore. Grant actually smiled. That's just how research is. I know what people say about me privately, but it doesn't matter. For the first time, I was getting close to this nationally celebrated scientist. Beyond his rigorous and stern scientific approach, he also had a mentor's compassion and warmth. The windstorm lasted about an hour. After confirming on our phones that there wouldn't be any more wind in the next few hours, we decided to head back. Grant and I walked side by side. Perhaps our earlier conversation made me feel the distance between us wasn't so vast anymore. I asked the question that had been stuck in my mind. Grant, why did you say in that first interview that I wasn't suited for research? My grades at school were excellent. Grant didn't answer my question. Instead, he asked me, What are your thoughts on these past few days of research? I think everyone's been really nice, and I've learned a lot of things I never saw in school. Grant said seriously that this was exactly why he thought I wasn't suited for research. I was confused. What's the connection? Everyone a discreep? During this time, we discovered some mineral properties that differ from current mainstream understanding. At least half the people on our team have drafted reports about this finding. And you never once asked me about it. I was stumped. Grant stopped and looked into my eyes. Margot Sterling, you don't have the curiosity and drive that research requires. If Grant had told me this before the field study, I definitely would have argued fiercely. But now, facing his eyes, I couldn't refute him. I kicked at a pebble by my feet and walked in silence. As I was about to glumly enter the hotel, Grant stopped me. He touched my head and said, "Don't let this negate who you are. The way I see it, you're knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and personable, a wonderful person. Give yourself more time. You'll find the right path." My heart raced, warmth flooding through me. Back in my room, I stealthily touched the hair Grant had patted, then held my hand up to my nose and sniffed. Good, no greasy scalp smell. 6. The system issued its second relationship task just before we were set to return. The team had packed up and was waiting at the spaceport for the shuttle. My phone dinged with a message. Romance occasionally needs little surprises. Please proceed to Spaceport Building, a one within 10 minutes to receive the surprise your partner has prepared for you. I scanned the crowd sure enough. Grant was nowhere to be seen. I mentally applauded the system. Not bad at all, one trick after another. If Grant was giving a gift, would it be research notes or something? Arriving at Spaceport Building A1, I saw a crowd of women gathered around something, chattering and secretly taking photos. My curiosity immediately kicked in. What's happening? Let me see. There was Grant Westwood, standing in front of the Spaceport Building with a bouquet of blue flowers. Ramrod straight, eyes searching for something. Whenever his gaze landed on those eager women, he'd quickly look away. Something's off. Though Grant looked fine on the surface, very composed, I knew better after that night when I'd gotten to know the real him. Margot Sterling, come here. Grant's gaze locked onto me in the crowd and he walked straight toward me. Instantly, the surrounding women's stares felt like knives on my skin. Grant pulled me toward a less crowded area, walking briskly while complaining that 8 minutes had already passed. Grant was taking such long strides I could barely keep up. A theory formed in my mind. Grant, are you socially anxious? Grant's steps halted immediately. Stiffly, he protested that he just wasn't used to crowded places. He pulled me to a remote area with no foot traffic, vigilantly scanning the surroundings. I mentally compared this to how smoothly Grant handled being alone with me versus his current discomfort. Social anxiety confirmed. After ensuring no one was around, Grant calmly handed me the bouquet. When it came down to it, I actually felt a bit embarrassed. I stiffly accepted the flowers and quietly thanked him. Grant touched his nose. He said yesterday the system had messaged him to prepare a little surprise for me. He'd researched it online and chosen this blue flower bouquet, a Vesper specialty. I said quietly, I thought you'd give me notes or something. Grant looked a bit awkward. Don't you like it? I don't have experience with this. I just saw the women at the Institute seemed happy when they received flowers. No, I love it. My heart was racing. We'd signed a contract. We were supposed to unbind after 3 months. Why was my heart doing this lately? After returning from the field study, I took some time off to deal with the sudden relationship tasks and think about my future direction. I thought seriously about it and decided Grant's assessment of me was pretty accurate. But if I didn't go into the Institute, what else could I do? I rolled around on my bed, wailing. My mom kicked open my door. What are you doing? Having a seizure? If you're fine, go shell those edamame in the living room. Just then, my phone rang. It was a message from Grant, telling me to dress formally and come to his place now. I immediately bolted out the door, saying goodbye to my mom. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, edamame. Thanks to the frequent relationship tasks lately, I knew the route to Grant's place by heart. After entering, I showed Grant the grapes I'd just bought. I saw these downstairs on my way over. They're so sweet, I wanted to bring you some to try. Dean Morrison. I wanted to find a hole to crawl into, shooting Grant accusatory looks. Why didn't you tell me you had company? Dean Morrison laughed heartily, smiling at Grant. Just like you said, a lively young woman. I sat obediently beside Dean Morrison. Grant was in the kitchen washing the grapes I'd brought. Dean Morrison asked me some major-related questions. This didn't stump me after all. I'd been called the walking encyclopedia at school. After hearing my answers, Dean Morrison smiled at Grant. Very good, very good. But why did his tone sound odd? Dean Morrison didn't stay long before taking his leave. I waved my arms at Grant like an angry cat, demanding to know why he hadn't told me someone was there. Grant pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. I wrote you a letter of recommendation for a teaching assistant position in the mineralogy department. Originally, I'd planned for you to interview with Dean Morrison next Wednesday. But Dean Morrison happened to have business with me today, so I mentioned it and had you come meet him. I asked awkwardly, "Why didn't you give me a heads up so I could prepare?" If I'd told you in advance, it would have been too deliberate. First impressions matter, you need to make a good one on your supervisor. I was a bit touched. Though Grant hadn't said much, he was genuinely doing things to help me. But the teaching assistant position made me nervous. Do you really think I can handle this job? Grant raised an eyebrow. Are you doubting me or doubting yourself? After deciding to interview for the teaching assistant position, I quit my security guard job at the institute. When I went to the security booth to collect my things, Mr. Davis looked at me with a conflicted expression. He hesitated for a long time before finally patting my shoulder. Margot, there's no obstacle in life you can't overcome. After breaking up with Grant, just rest for a couple days and start fresh. With your talent, you'll definitely find a good job. Grant's not necessarily a good guy anyway, good riddance. My mouth twitched. What on earth have you been imagining? Margot Sterling. Grant's voice came from the doorway. There he was, wearing a face mask, calling to me from outside. I asked, "What's up?" Grant said, enunciating each word with difficulty. "Honey, could you come to Durlin Amusement Park with me for a date right now?" 7. I shuddered. Had Grant been infected by some unknown virus? Grant kept signaling me with his eyes. Honestly, it looked a bit like a facial tic, but I still successfully understood what he meant, probably another system task. I quickly played along. Sure, I just finished packing. I hurriedly said goodbye to Mr. Davis. Grant gave him a cool nod. Just outside the security booth, I spotted a few young women hiding not far away, looking at us with weird smiles. They appeared to be some of Grant's graduate students. Grant followed my gaze. Then I watched his jaw clench. The young women, noticing Grant's attention, immediately straightened up and greeted him formally. When their eyes landed on me, they hesitated briefly before saying, "Hello, Mrs. Westwood." Grant maintained his composure and strode away with long steps, pulling me along. Behind us, I could still hear the women whispering, "I never imagined Professor Westwood could be so passionate when he's dating. Do you think we should give wedding gifts when Professor Westwood gets married?" After leaving the security booth, I laughed so hard I could barely breathe. Did you see Mr. Davis's expression when we left? I never imagined a human face could contort like that. And your grad students are so bold. Did you hear them discussing whether to give you wedding gifts? This is hilarious. I tugged on Grant's sleeve. He didn't respond, walking forward mechanically like a zombie. Oh no, this trauma's too severe. He's even walking with the wrong stride pattern. I stopped Grant and pulled out my phone, playing a recording I'd made a few days ago of the system notification sound. Ding. I pinched my voice to sound robotic. Hello, this is the Federal Bureau of Population Harmony LoveSync app. Grant shuddered, his face rapidly turning red then white. He stopped walking and muttered something under his breath. I tried earnestly to offer suggestions. Maybe you could try living on a different planet? Grant suddenly erupted, grabbing my shoulders. He said in nearly 30 years of life, he'd never been this humiliated. I tried patting his shoulder, comforting him like I would my 5-year-old nephew. It's okay, I'll buy you ice cream. Crap, wrong script. I quickly covered Grant's eyes and started improvising. Ah, a beautiful woman and a little boy just walked by eating ice cream. What a nice aunt-nephew relationship they have. Grant said in a muffled voice, "Margot Sterling." Yeah? I told you before, don't treat me like an idiot. Oh. After Grant returned to normal, I asked, "Are we still going to Durlin Amusement Park?" Hearing Durlin Amusement Park seemed to trigger some strange switch in Grant. His volume instantly increased, becoming fired up. Go? Of course we're going. I'd been to this park many times with my nephew. After entering, I positioned Grant strategically. You stand here and don't move. I'll be right back. Walking to the ice cream cart, I asked the vendor for 2 chocolate cones. The woman enthusiastically recommended the couple's special. Today the couple's strawberry ice cream is half off. I was about to say no thanks, I prefer chocolate, when the woman pointed cheerfully toward Grant. Young lady, is that your boyfriend? You two look so good together. Then we'll take 2 strawberry, please. Thank you. It wasn't about the discount. I just really felt like having strawberry today. I bounced over to Grant with the ice cream, generously offering him one. Grant refused. Is this from familial affection? No, it's mainly because today's couple's special strawberry ice cream is half off. Grant looked at the pink cone in my hand. I'll eat one then. Otherwise, if you eat both, you'll get a stomach ache. Grant and I strolled leisurely along the path, eating our ice cream. The evening breeze felt nice on our faces. Ding! Hello, this is the Federal Bureau of Population Harmony LoveSync app. Grant turned to look at me, ice cream in hand. I shook my head. Not me this time. System detects you are currently at the romance destination Durlin Amusement Park. System suggests riding the highly recommended romance project, the Ferris Wheel, to conclude this pleasant date. I looked at Grant with concern. On Vesper, I'd noticed that Grant got more nervous than usual at heights and avoided looking down. Grant had mild acrophobia. The system used big data to provide suggestions. Based on Grant's physical condition, it shouldn't recommend something like a Ferris wheel. Maybe we should skip this one. Grant said calmly it was fine. I got anxious. When Grant got really nervous, his face became calm. The more nervous he was, the more composed he appeared. You have acrophobia? Even if we don't complete this task and get our privileges restricted, I'll go to the Bureau tomorrow to appeal. Grant explained that he wasn't acrophobic, he'd fallen from a height a couple years ago and had been nervous around heights since, but it wasn't serious. I couldn't win against Grant, so we ended up going to ride the Ferris wheel. I grabbed Grant's hand and firmly instructed him not to open his eyes, just follow my lead. I held out my hand in front of Grant, signaling him to hold it. After a moment, a broad, warm hand grasped mine. Grant's hand was hot, his palm slightly rough from years of handling minerals calluses formed over time. I steadied my emotions and led Grant onto the Ferris wheel. As the gondola gradually rose, I kept talking to distract Grant from his nervousness. I talked about imagining what the teaching assistant job would be like. Teaching those young students should be interesting. My nephew ate too much ice cream and got cavities, so his mom banned sweets. Grant just sat quietly in the gondola, listening to my chatter. Our clasped hands never separated. As the Ferris wheel neared the top, I asked Grant, "Do you want to disable this relationship enhancement mode?" Grant thought for a moment. This system is too unpredictable. If possible, I'd prefer to disable it. The gondola reached the highest point. Grant sat across from me with his eyes closed, the hazy nightscape beyond the glass. I closed my eyes and leaned forward, kissing Grant's lips. 8. His lips were soft, with a hint of strawberry ice cream. There's a saying, no matter how tough a man acts, his lips are soft. When I first asked the bureau receptionist if there was any way to disable the relationship enhancement mode, there actually was. She'd said the mode was designed to encourage romance. If the system determined you were already in love, it would deactivate. So the simplest method was physical intimacy. 10 days had passed since I'd kissed Grant. The relationship enhancement mode never appeared again. Grant hadn't contacted me either. I'd passed the teaching assistant interview and was at home preparing for the position. Logically, everything was moving in a positive direction. But I felt like something was missing. If I'd known it would turn out like this, I should have kissed Grant a few more times that day. Really worn his lips out, I thought resentfully. Knock, knock, knock. Who could that be? My mom was out grocery shopping. She wouldn't be back this early. Opening the door to see who it was, I felt awkward. Grant stood outside looking serious. Get your government-issued partnership ID and come with me to the bureau. I glanced at the date. The 3 months were already up. Do you need ID to unbind? I asked, confused. Grant hesitated briefly, then said decisively, yes. Hurry up and get it. At the bureau, the coordinator-like receptionist greeted us enthusiastically. What service are you here for today? Get your marriage certificate today and receive a honeymoon travel package worth $888. Grant, holding my hand, gave the receptionist a cool nod, then led me straight to the service counter. I felt a bit uncomfortable holding Grant's hand. Today, his hand was very hot and slightly sweaty. What's with this? We're about to unbind, and he's getting my hand all sweaty. Grant handed over both our IDs. We're here to unbind from the trial period. The clerk wanted to make one more effort for the marriage rate, but then Grant spoke again. And then register for marriage. What? Both the clerk and I were shocked. The clerk quickly became all smiles and started processing our paperwork. I tried in shock to pull my hand from Grant's grip, but couldn't after several attempts. Wait, what have you been doing these past 10+ days? I thought we broke up. Grant held my hand tighter. The institute had an emergency experiment, completely sealed off. I just got out today. I inexplicably detected a hint of grievance in Grant's tone. Grant operated his phone with his other hand and tapped a few times. I just sent you a file. It's my analysis of our marriage compatibility and future family harmony. Based on our previous time together, I believe we're very suitable for marriage. I was speechless. Here we go again. After the unbinding contract, now there's a marriage analysis. But do you like me? I asked nervously. Grant's ears turned red. How strange. I'd never seen Grant react this way before. Even in those super embarrassing situations, he hadn't been like this. He said stubbornly, "You like me, and we've already been together like that." The clerk was grinning so hard her face was cramping. I understood Grant's thought process a bit. I tried a different approach. "So do you want to build a family with me and spend our lives together?" Grant looked into my eyes and nodded. "I like girls. We can buy her pink dresses in the future." Oh, my face started burning too. I also really like girls. When Grant led me out of the bureau, I still couldn't believe I'd been manipulated into marriage by this socially anxious, romantically clueless guy. I resentfully grabbed the $888 honeymoon travel package from Grant's arms. "Remember, I only married you because this honeymoon travel package was such a good deal. Should we go to my place to research where to go for our honeymoon trip?" I nodded, blushing. Okay. Somewhere between government forms and system warnings, I'd accidentally found something unquantifiable. Something the algorithm couldn't have predicted, that the brilliant, socially anxious scientist who'd rejected me would become the person I couldn't imagine my life without. The fluorite my mother gave me was supposed to bring good fortune. Maybe it had, after all. The end.